I think Hagel's experience in Vietnam definitely did affect his worldview. He remembers landing that day in Vietnam and the smell of the place and the heat and the humidity and how oppressive it was and how scared he was, like all of the troops were as they landed there. His brother served in the same unit with him, and at one point they were walking at the head of a column and were rotated to the back, as was routinely done, and shortly thereafter the two soldiers who had taken their place in the front tripped a booby trap, and landmines in the trees around them exploded and scattered shrapnel and knocked both of them down. And Tom looked over at Chuck and thought, well, maybe he's just been kind of knocked down by the force of this, but then realized that he was bleeding badly. And his brother Tom wrapped cloths around his chest, tore off his shirt, and stopped the bleeding and probably saved his life. Tom had been somewhat injured too, and they were in the hospital together for a while, but then back on patrol. And so along in the spring of 1968 then, they were pulling back out of a firefight, and the troop carrier that they were riding in, a landmine went off underneath it. And at first, this time, Chuck thought Tom had been killed. He was unconscious, he was bleeding from his ears, he said. And Chuck and the others who were conscious pulled everybody out of the carrier as fast as they could because they knew the ammunition would explode as the fire built. And they survived, but he wasn't far enough away from the vehicle when it blew up, and he was burned, including on his face. And he said later that he remembers sitting or lying in that medevac helicopter waiting to be airlifted out of there. And he remembers that Armed Forces radio was on, and Linda Ronstadt and the Stone Ponies were singing, "You and I traveled to the beat of a different drum." And he remembers thinking that if I ever get out of here and I can ever influence something like this, I want to be sure that we avoid war if we possibly can, that it's the last resort. And he still thinks about it. It's not that I'm a pacifist. I'm a hard-edged realist. I understand the world as it is, but war is a terrible thing. There's no glory, only suffering.